All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I would work through a real, actual, honest to God code challenge that I got from somebody in Denver. It's a little bit different than the other two that I have up on the site, though. This was built as like a full stacker challenge, but really it's like mostly front end. So I was given the task. So I should probably screen share. Recreate this, and it needs to be responsive. This is just an image. It didn't really give me anything else. So make it look like that, and then use your best judgment on how to make that responsive. So before I get started, questions about this?
Not questions, but like at least 2 of the code challenges that I received in the past month were something exactly like this. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the responsiveness?
So this is the desktop view. So use some judgment for how this would decompose into like a tablet or a mobile view.
I see. Okay. So it just needs to be dynamic for other devices. Okay.
Correct. Other questions?
Okay, so with only a pedestrian understanding of what that how that manifests, how something's scaling into a phone size, tablet size, whatever. If I remember correctly, is that not something that you're applying in your HTML and CSS? Like how much of this would really be more than CSS and HTML stuff?
This is all HTML and CSS.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, cool.
Anything else? Cool. So first thing that I do if I see something like this, if I'm given a comp like this and asked to recreate it, oops. First thing I want to get down is the hierarchy. So I'm going to go over to practice, make a new folder, and I'll call this responsive design challenge. So yep, it's going to be an index.html, and it's going to be an app.css, and that's it. So I'm going to open up the index.html, scaffold it out. So they didn't give me a title on this, so I'm going to make a guess there too. I'm going to say phase classic eclectic living room. If I was on this page on the site, that's probably what I'd want to show up in the title. Or it might be company name dash, something like that. Give it a character set. All right, so now I got to figure out what content there is in here. I'm gonna say, first thing you want to figure out is what's the main header, and I think it's probably that phase classic eclectic living room. Cool. That thing above it, I'm just going to put a paragraph tag unless I can think of a better one for it. All right, and so then we have this image. So now I need to figure out if this is an image or a figure. The difference is that a figure may or may not be captioned. I kind of want to go with, and shoot. I'm going to go with just an image on that. But I'm going to give it a class of hero. Because it is, I don't like that either. I'm going to say primary image. You want to describe what it is, not what it looks like. You can talk about what role it's serving on the page without saying too much about how it presents.
That was actually my question was, how do you go back and add classes and IDs, or do you just want to get all the bones out early and then go back in and?
Great question. Like I consider those part of the bones to some extent. So like image is very generic. H1 isn't generic. H1 kind of describes itself. But image, div, sometimes section, a lot of those benefit from more descriptive names. So even when I'm just sketching out the bones, I'll often put those in there also.
Well, for example, I know down the line you're going to need to center that P tag and color it, but you're probably going to have another P tag somewhere else that is not going to get that treatment.
Yeah, definitely so. So that stuff I don't worry about when I'm sketching it out.
Sure, easy fix.
But like this next one, or this is a small intro blurb that gives you just a bit of insight into phase project. Should you decide to read more, then come on, then you, oh no, oh, they're right. Read ahead wrong. Although that is probably not what they wanted to do. So something like that, like this is probably going to show up on every one of these pages, and like it's a different kind of paragraph tag. So I probably want to call this description, or we could call it something like intro blurb. That'd be fair too. But we want to describe what it is. All right, and then we have styles used. So that's probably going to be something like, I'm going to make that a section. Distinguishing feature of a section is that sections have headings. So styles used is a heading. And that looks like an unordered list if I've ever seen one. They just have cool graphics for the boxes. Okay, so it's classic. See, now I need to kind of decide if this is going, it's unordered, but that doesn't mean it's not presenting with an order. So does that order go classic, bohemian, eclectic, or classic, eclectic, bohemian? I'm kind of inclined to say classic, bohemian. Eclectic, modern. Cool. And then I've got this thing over here. I don't like keeping that as a div. I'm just going to put it as a placeholder for right now and keep rolling. So now this one, now this is interesting. You could call this an unordered list, but I kind of don't think it is. I think it might work better as I'm spacing on the name of this. HTML DT DL DD. Description list. I think that might be a description list. So let's take a look at the description of it. Groups of terms and descriptions, commonly used for glossaries or metadata as key value pairs. I'm still not sure. I'm going to look at the description list reference. Okay. Like that kind of makes me feel good that that would be it. This is an interesting point here. You can wrap description terms and description definitions in divs. That's allowed. That's cool. Awesome. I'm going to go for that. So I'm going to call that DL and.
So was I like reading that right? That you're like linking two of these now?
Kind of. So the client name and then Fay, those have a relationship with each other. One of them is like describing something, or one of them is the label, one of them is the actual thing. So it's a key value pair, like an object. And so the way you'd represent that in HTML is with DLs, DTs, and DDs. So it'd look like this. Like that. And what they were saying in there, I think I'm going to take advantage of this, is that you can wrap these in divs. That's allowed. So we've got client name, it's 6 of these, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So since styles used went across instead of up and down, I'm going to try to do the same thing with this one. So do client name, client location, designer name, I'm kind of inclined to, I'm putting these colons in here. I don't think they're actually part of the content. Like I can imagine different ways of displaying the same thing that wouldn't use colons. Like if it was subtitled above it or something like that. So I think that's just for looks. So I'm gonna take those out actually. Center location, timeline is 4 weeks. And budget is $6,000. Okay, so I've got all the content on the page now. First thing I'm noticing is that I actually don't think I need this div. I'm gonna get rid of it. I think the DL serves the same purpose, but I want to give it some kind of label. So I'm gonna call it project details. Cool. I think that's it. Let me link the style sheet. And let's serve it up. Perfect. I'll put it there. All right, cool. So I've got this, but I want to make it look like that. There's the challenge. So where to start? First place I want to start is this background color. Notice that the background color isn't white. And you can tell that because the case study phase classic eclectic living room, that's lighter. You can't be lighter than white, so it's probably not that.
Eggshell.
Eggshell, exactly. So one of the things we can do is, I don't know if I have this tool here. Check this out. I'm gonna take that image and I'm actually going to throw it on the page down at the bottom. And I am going to, let's see. Oh, fuck, it won't let me do it on that. I'm going to do responsive.png. Cool. And then over here, I'm going to move that file in. So. All right, cool. All right, there it is. The reason I did that is I have some tools available to me in the browser that will let me do things like figure out what color that actually is. And let's see. There it is. F8, F8, F8. Cool. So I'm going to say that the body's background is F8, F8, F8. Cool, very nice. Next thing, this case study phase eclectic living room thing. I kind of want to make that. So in the image, let's shrink that up. In the image, it's like it has that padding around it. And I don't really have anything that I could put that padding around. So what that's telling me is that I missed something semantically. So I think what I actually missed is that's a header. Okay. And then I want to try to get the padding on this right. Let's say that I couldn't do an element inspect. Well, I guess I technically can't. I need to make some guesses about what this padding is. So first question is, do I think it's the same on the sides as it is on the bottom? And it kind of looks like it is, actually. And then you go, all right, is it the same on the left side as the right side? No. Interesting. It also looks like it's a little bit more on the bottom than it is the top. All right, let's start fucking with it and see what we get. So if I'm just making some swag guesses, that's like 24 pixels on top. That looks like 20 pixels, maybe 16 on the right. On the bottom, it looks like a little bit more, so like 36 there maybe, and then 36. What a strange way to do that. And then it has a white background. All right, so if I compare those two, it's kind of hard to tell with the typography what it is right now. So I guess that's the next thing I want to do. I want to figure out how close I can get to the typography that they're using here. So I kind of feel like, so I'm trying to figure out if the body text and this header text, if these are different typefaces. And I kind of don't think they are. So what I'm basing that on is I'm looking at some of the characters, like see that Y, how it has this tail here? That looks like the same one there. Or another thing you can check. So these are serifed, all of them. All of those are serifed. This is called a two-story A. Are they using two-story lowercase a's there? Yep. I think that's the same typeface, just in different weights. So I'm going to go to Google Fonts. And I'm going to look for serif typefaces. Well, at least a couple styles. Something like that. All right, and then like a good giveaway is going to be that Y. So Bayes Classic Eclectic Living Room. You can just type that in here. Bayes Classic Eclectic Living Room. Okay, so the Y is kind of our giveaway. Nope, nope. It's got a little like ball on the end like this. So this one is a contender. Playfair looks a little bit too thin. All right, Laura's the winner so far. Source Serif Pro, you say?
Those ones both have different apostrophes.
That's because of how I typed it in. This is technically called a prime. This is an apostrophe. They're actually different character codes, which is why it's coming out that way. All right, I think I'm gonna go, ooh, where are you? That's gonna look weird small. All right, how many styles does Laura have? Okay, so let's look at like some of the heavier weights on that, like the 700. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Here's another like thing that they have in common is the particular kind of serif on these is called a slab serif. It doesn't swoop up to the letter. It's like a bar that's sitting on. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go with this, Laura. So I want their 400 and I want their 700. Cool. And then I'll say font family for the body is Laura. And we need a fallback. So we'll say whatever the default serif is if you don't have Laura or if it doesn't download or something like that. Nice. So then in this H1, I'm going to up the weight. Oh, it was already using the bold weight because I didn't reset. Ah, that's a thing. I definitely want to reset. So I'm going to say Meyer reset MDN, or sorry, CDN. That's what I wanted. So I'm just going to take all of that as is and put it before my style sheet. Cool. All right, now let's try to get it's a couple things in this header. So I could say that a P tag in the header, notice how it's all capital letters. That's a purely display thing. That doesn't have anything to do with the content. And so we don't want to do that in our HTML. That's a CSS thing. So we can say something like text transform uppercase, and it'll uppercase it for us since it's purely display. The size on that doesn't look terrible. Let's try the H1. Too much. Too much. All right, so I'm kind of out of love with this font choice. So one of the things that it's missing is on the capital C. This is called the bowl. See how it's kind of fat in the middle there? It's not really on this one. And look how much higher the letters are on this than they are here. That's not just font size, that's part of the font design also. So if we go back here, let's see if we can find a C that has that, that bowl. Garamond is kind of getting it. Yeah, let's do Garamond. That's a good one. So same thing, I'm gonna grab a 400 and I'm gonna go with the 800 too. So I'm just gonna swap those out. And then say EB Garamond. Hey, it's a little bit better. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna step up the size on that a little bit. Cool, I like that a lot better. So still need to have this like case study thing. Let's figure out what color that is. So notice that like, it's not the exact same color pink on all of these. That's how they make fonts look good on screens, because you can make it all the exact same color and then the borders of the letter forms look terrible. So what you're looking for is like the one that you see the most, like kind of the solid one. So I'm gonna go with,
Carl, what is your color picker tool?
it's just built into the Firefox DevTools.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go with this, well, let's see. Where's the E?
Is this built into Chrome as well?
Almost definitely.
There's an extension for Chrome, Rainbow Color Picker.
There you go. I'm gonna go with this one. F9C4BE. 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 Okay. Oh, interesting. That one is sans serif. Same down here.
And so are the little,
Yeah, these
Yeah.
things. Good catch. So that one. All right, so I need something that's going to narrow down what kind of letters these are. It kind of looks like to me this is geometric. So we don't have an O. That's kind of the giveaway on these. Let's see if there's one on the other one. Yep. All right, so whenever the O is a perfect circle, that's a pretty good hint that it's a geometric typeface. So I'm going to go back over to Google Fonts. And we're looking for a sans serif typeface. And see, like these O's are ovals. This is slightly less so. These ones are super ovally versus these ones, which are just circles. So we had, what was it? Styles used. Railway looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with this. And I'm going to do the, shoot. Do I still have mine? Yeah. I need to put my other one in there also.
Kyle, I think you grabbed italic instead of regular.
Oh, good call. Thank you. So the other one that I was using is called Garamond. So 400, 800. Do regular and get rid of the italic. The reason why like I want those together is it cuts down on it's one less HTTP request. Makes the app a little bit quicker. Cool. So now for these, I can also do font family, railway, sans serif, fallback. Hey, that looks a little bit better. Looks like it has a little bit more weight in this one. So I'm going to step it up. Looks like there's a bunch of them too. So yeah, what if I do a 600 on that? So I'll cut out the 400. Do this one instead. And then this one, I'll make font weight 600. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Cool. So next thing I notice about this is that there's, it's centered, so we're gonna have to deal with that. And then this pushes this down a little bit. So we have to decide if we're gonna solve that problem with margin or padding. And so a good way to think of this is, if I have like anything here, would I ever have anything kissed right up next to it, or would it always be pushing something down? I think it would always be pushing down whatever is under it. So that makes me think that that's going to be margin bottom. That looks like a little bit too much, just a little bit. I'll knock that down to 12. That's better. Cool. Next thing. So, got to figure out how to do this centering. Oh, one more though. This is not black. 222736. 222736. Hey, all right, all right. So I got to figure out how I want to do this centering. One thing that is the truth is that this entire header doesn't take up the entire line. So what I can infer from that is that it's not a block. It is centered though, which makes me think that it's flexed. So let's see, is that nice? So now I got to figure out whether or not I want to put that in a wrapper or flex the entire body. And I'm kind of inclined, I'm gonna do a wrapper for now, but I'm gonna feel kind of dirty about it. I'm gonna say div class header wrapper. And then what I'm going to do with that header wrapper is flex its children. It only has one child. It's just wrapping this header. So I'm going to flex it, and I'm going to center it in there. Cool. So now I've constrained the width on that, but it didn't center it. Why did you not center it?
Content instead of center.
Oh, that'll do it. This is the benefits of pair programming, everybody. There we go. All right, so now it's centered. I can kind of compare it a little bit more directly. All right, now within there, each of these is its own line. So then I just I used regular text centering for that case study. Do text align center. Cool. Awesome, very nice. Okay, I mentioned that this was using an actual apostrophe instead of a prime here. There's a thing called a character entity that you can use. That they look like this. So instead of like typing that out, you do ampersand, semicolon, and then in between them, they're like passphrases kind of. So that one will do that quote. It's kind of recommended to not do that anymore. That was how you were supposed to do it when I was growing up. But it's a UTF-8 character, so it probably makes more sense just to use it like that. So that's the apostrophe versus that's the prime. Achieves the same thing. All right, so I've got phase, classic, eclectic, living room.
Hey, Kyle, is the only way to get that apostrophe to copy the UTF-8 from somewhere else?
No, you can also type in its alt code. So alt code for right single quote. Curly single open quote. So alt 0145 will probably do it. Let's see. Alt 0145. No. Alt 0145. All right, it's different on Linux, so it might not be working there, but usually you hold down Alt or Option and then type in this character sequence and it'll give you the character Cool. And now that I'm looking at it, check my title. It's also using the prime. There we go. That's nicer. Okay, another thing I'm noticing. So in this image, this header is like down from the top margin of the page a little bit. So I need to decide, is that the page pushing that header down? Or is that the header pushing the page away from it? And I think the header kind of doesn't care about the page. I think the page is saying, I would never have content up here at this margin. So I'm going to say that that's probably padding. I'm going to call it 36 pixels on top and like 72 on the sides. It's more on top. 48. That looks a little better. Cool. So now I think I can, now that like the colors and the font weights and sizes are a little bit closer to what this actually is, I feel like I can evaluate the padding inside of this a lot better. Like it needs way more on the left side. So if I call that 36, oops, that's the top. I call that 48. No, more than that. 64. There we go. That's better. And then the top is a little bit more also, so that's probably 36. That feels like too much. 30 or 32. That's better. And then on the bottom, needs more on the bottom. So we'll try 48. Okay, and then what about the right side? Right side's not very much, but it's more than that. So cool. Maybe a little bit more. Make that 32 also. Oh, I wonder. Ooh. I think I'm starting to see it. What if it's 32 on the top and the right, and it's 64 on the bottom and left side? Absolutely not. Sometimes like a big part of this process is trying to figure out the logic in the design. There we go. You're trying to figure out whoever designed this. It's not just arbitrary. It's not just somebody really likes those colors. You're trying to figure out where their mind was. Were they trying to intentionally create some asymmetry here? This being closer to this corner creates some tension in this direction. So you're trying to like kind of figure some of that stuff out as you're going. Okay, not bad. So next thing, I want to get this image in here. And part of the design is that this header overlaps the image a little bit. So I'm going to do it this way. I believe they supplied me with the image, but let's say that they didn't. You can slice it out of there. So I'll call this room.ping. Cool. And over here, I'm going to copy that in. I think it's in pictures. room.ping. All right, cool. So that's in there now. So this image source is going to be room.ping, and never have an image, especially like an important image like this, without having an alt tag for it. Phase room design. This is what a screen reader is going to say with the assistive technology when you load up the page. Okay, cool. So a couple things going on with this. I'm going to start with this overlap. So if I want to make the header overlap the image, this is like a CSS hacky kind of thing. To move something down on top of something, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can absolutely position it, which takes it out of the document flow, and you can put it wherever you want. The problem is that like the document flow is working for us in a lot of ways in that header. And so the hacky way that we can kind of get the best of both worlds is with a negative margin. So if I do margin bottom, first, like to give you an idea of what this is actually doing, if I just put a normal one down, it pushes the picture out of the way. Now, if I start reducing that, I can go negative and put it on top of it, like that. And so I can say I want it to be negative 16 pixels, and now they overlap. How much do they actually overlap? More than that, not much. 24 pixels. Okay, that's about the right amount of overlap. Now, it's supposed to be the header is on top of the image. And so z-index is the property that you use for that. So I can either move the header one up, or I can move the image down. And again, this comes down to a matter of like, all right, would the header overlap anything? And like, I kind of think it would, more than like the image would underlap anything. So I'm going to say that the primary image, well, I'll say the header has a z-index of 10. Cool, and now it's on top of it. All right, next thing. So I have this much padding on the side here right now. It's kind of hard to tell in this image how much they really intended for that. But I'm going to try doing this with padding. Yeah, I'm gonna give that a shot. So I'm going to say the body padding on that side. Let me just try mashing it up. Oh, it's doing everything. that doesn't help. If I just do that. If I do padding left 100 pixels. All right, ends up being about 120 pixels. All right, so we'll give that a shot. Cool. All right, so my challenge now, this might even work better with a grid. So I want this kind of like invisible line here and this invisible line here, and then have like the padding be around all of those. So let me see if there's a semantic way I can describe like all of this stuff. I could put a wrapper around the entire app. And I feel less bad about this one because this particular pattern, like it's a lot easier to do with a wrapper around the entire thing. So I'm going to say that all of this is probably about the same. I'm going to make an app header, and I'm going to constrain the width on this. We'll say like max width is, I don't know what that is, 600 pixels maybe. And then I'm going to flex that center rather than doing that with padding. So I can do something like display flex, justify content, center. Cool. And then my little demo image down here, class example. Make a note to myself that I want to get rid of it before I turn this in. And let's say, oh, I see why it's doing that, because I flexed the container, duh. We'll say flex flow column no wrap. There we go. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Cool. App wrapper. And then my image, this is I really don't think CSS sucks. I think CSS is actually like pretty great, but there are a couple hacky things. Some of you know about my issue with box sizing border box. This is another one. Images will always overrun their containers unless you tell them not to, which is stupid design. Is it supposed to look like that? All right. And then this is no longer justify content center since I'm going column. It's align items center. Hey, now it's starting to kind of look like the thing. Cool. One more thing I want to show you on this, and then we got to kind of wrap the day. First, this does still need some padding on top. Go. But in their like description text, theirs really doesn't look anything like mine. And so the thing that fixes that is a couple things. One is this is called a drop cap, this like giant giant uppercase T, and there's way more line spacing than the default. And so both of those are actually pretty easy to do. So we can say something like, for the description, let's do the drop cap. So I think it's nth character CSS. Into letter. First letter, there we go. So if I do something like description, first letter, pseudo element. Perfect. Okay, so first letter, and then I want one for just the description overall. The description overall, I want the line height to be like, let's try 1.5. It was pretty generous. Also, the font size was probably in like the 24 pixel kind of neighborhood. And this first character was text transform uppercase and font weight 800 and font size 72 pixels. Hey, not bad. So that weight is too much, and the size is probably about a third again too big. So if I knock that down to like 56 pixels, how's that work? That versus that. So we're seeing another difference in the in like the typefaces there. Like there's a name for this, these little like hanging down eaves. They're way different on this one. And it's making the stem of that T super fucking big. But you can see that the that line spacing, that's at least in the ballpark. It's starting to look a lot better. Ah, and look at that. That's blue also. So that same blue we were using in the H1, they're also using that in the body copy. Yeah, that softens that up a lot. And I'm going to bring that down even more. Cool. And then this description is going to have a little bit of margin under it. Cool. All right, so that's how you'd approach a problem like this. So around this point, probably, so like, if I'm thinking about how I would make this responsive, there really aren't a whole lot of things to fuck up on this. So what we probably want to do is you want the padding on the sides to be way smaller. So like that's a media query. This is going to take up the entire width of the device. We might have to like use media queries to make these sizes a little bit smaller. And then with these, this one, like pretty much the first rule of mobile design is you really can't use the horizontal axis that much. And so having things side by side sort of doesn't work. So I just need a way to collapse this to be all in a line. And what's cool about the spec allowing us to put these divs in there is then we can say, oh, instead of those divs just being inline block, just make them block. So it's another like media query thing you could do. And probably same thing with these styles. These are small enough that we might be able to get away with having these in a little grid like this on mobile. And then we're using something like flex or grid, again with media queries, to just reorder this. So instead of these being side by side, so like this might be flex flow row, no wrap. Then when you collapse it, you just set it to row wrap. And so when this is all of the amount of space that you have, it's just going to force it to flow under it. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how to approach these kinds of like visual problems like this. What
You
questions
remember what this was for?
What was that?
You remember what job this was for?
Yes, I do, but I'm not going to tell you because I'm recording this and this is going up on YouTube and I don't want them to get mad at me.
Stop the recording.
What about position?
This was for senior full stack developer.
How long on average do they give you for these kinds of challenges?
I got, like, they didn't give me a time limit on this one. If you start taking too long, it starts looking suspicious. They told me that, like, you should be able to knock this out in a couple hours. And they were right. But this happens to be like one of my strongest areas of development. There's other people that would take 8 hours for that, but they don't want to seem like they don't know what they're doing. It's like, yeah, I knocked that out in an hour too. But like, I would say for a senior full stack developer, doing all the rest of that, I'd probably need another hour or so. And like, if I was mostly a back end guy, but like I was not too terrible on the front end, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours would probably be appropriate. And then from the employer side, I would expect something like that back in a couple days. Other questions?
Is there any way you would give us the comp so we can see how fast it takes us?
Yeah, I'll do that.
To that point, practicing something like that, go over to a web page, pull it open, don't look at the dev tools, see if you can reproduce it.
Like, I do that all the time still. I'm like currently doing that with the Kickstarter site. It's like, because here's the thing, like, it's great CSS practice. It's outstanding design practice because you'll start to see that, like, and even when you look in the dev tools, that these numbers aren't arbitrary. A lot of times they have like mathematical relationships. And once you see what those relationships are, like, the logic of the design starts making a lot more sense. Because something being like twice as big generally means it's twice as important. But like, then you can soften that by like making the color less dramatic and like a lot of other things. But you want to see what other designers, what levers they're pulling to like direct your attention in an app. What else?
Free request for Monday that we maybe see the rest of that.
Sure.
The last hour.
I will forget that we had this conversation, so ask you on Monday. Anything else? All right, survey's coming out soon.